Sweaty Donald Trump stooge Kevin McCarthy initially rejected the idea of appointing members to a commission meant to investigate what transpired in our nation's capital on January 6th. That's when Trump supporters, rioters stormed the Capitol and caused all sorts of damage, harmed Capitol Police, and of course tried to, in their minds, overturn the results of our democratic process to ensure that Donald Trump continues to be the president of the United States. They failed, luckily, but the House of Representatives voted to, obviously try to pass some sort of commission to investigate what transpired. It was blocked by the Senate, and so Nancy Pelosi decided, all right, then I'm gonna go ahead and create a group of people, a committee basically, to do the investigation without the support of Republicans. But I want it to be a bipartisan effort, so I will appoint people to this group. Kevin McCarthy, as the House Minority Leader, can appoint people if he wants. And Nancy Pelosi even went so far as to choosing a Republican, Liz Cheney, to serve in this committee. Now, McCarthy at first seemed like he wasn't interested in playing along at all. Now he's changed his mind. McCarthy indeed plans to place Republicans on the high-profile panel and is in the process of making his selections. So why this sudden change of heart? Well, you might find some hints in this next video. Let's watch.
What brought about this change in McCarthy's thinking?
Well, initially there was a debate inside the House GOP about whether to just boycott this panel altogether as a way to sort of paint it as partisan. But once Speaker Nancy Pelosi appointed Liz Cheney to her side of the committee, which will ensure that Democrats have bipartisan buy-in for their investigative work, it became clear that the boycott strategy was no longer a viable option for the GOP. So instead, I'm told Kevin McCarthy is indeed planning on appointing Republicans to the select committee. And the thinking there is that Republicans want an opportunity to try to shape a counter narrative, play defense for Donald Trump, and essentially try to throw some sand in the gears of the investigation as much as possible.
So, John, you brought up an interesting point while that video was playing regarding some of Kevin McCarthy's threats to Republican lawmakers if they tried to serve on this committee. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I vaguely remembered, wait, didn't he tell them that if they went onto the committee, that he would strip them of their committee assignments, which is literally about as bad a thing as he can do.
Right.
It's what Marjorie Greene got. And I looked it up, yeah, it was 6 days ago. It wasn't even a full week ago. And now he's like, I was joshing. You can go on there or whatever.
It's amazing.
To do, and why would, like, this does make sense. Yeah, you wanna have a few people on there so they can ruin stuff. Like that's like the video that you showed before, to create chaos and waste time and all that. Maybe not too much time, because you don't wanna drag this right into the midterms, but you definitely wanna make it as non-functional as possible. The cost to that, though, is that your strategy kind of sucked. You could have had an actual bipartisan committee, evenly split, that you would have had much more capacity to just derail everything, just 50-50 vote. You can't get anything done. Now it's still gonna be seen and presented as bipartisan, except they're not gonna have an equal share. Just strategically, it seems stupid.
They're not. This whole committee thing is already turning out to be a little bit of a joke. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I'm kind of mentally checked out until the final thing comes out, and I'm not expecting much.
Well, let's talk a little bit about who McCarthy is thinking about choosing for the committee, because there was a lot of fear regarding McCarthy, picking some crazy people, like maybe Representative Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene, to kind of derail this whole process. But the GOP, for better or worse, is a little more strategic than that. And so he's been advised to have some practical picks to kind of give this facade of credibility or legitimacy to the committee, while also being able to steer it in the direction that the Republican Party wants. Because what they're concerned about is Democrats using this investigation as a way of, maintaining power in the midterm elections. Democrats would have to be smart and strategic and do a little more than just that, like maybe offer something that improves people's lives in addition to this committee, like that would be better. But they usually don't go in that direction. Most of their campaigning is, they're bad, we're good, vote for us. It doesn't really encourage a lot of people to show up to vote, to be honest. I think disaffected voters want something substantive. Anyway, that's beside the point though. And so here's what we know based on reporting from CNN. The thinking among Republicans is that the purge will enable them to shape a counter narrative to a probe that could ensnare other members of their party. Some GOP sources even think it would be a smart move for McCarthy to select one member who voted to certify the election results in order to help inoculate against
a wild card.
Some of the criticism from Democrats. That is especially true after Nancy Pelosi chose Representative Liz Cheney as one of her 8 selections for the congressional probe.
That's amazing. It's like, wait a second, I have an idea. You should choose one person who respected the will of the voters. And McCarthy's like, well, I hadn't even considered that.
Totally.
I just assumed all of them would be people that tried to overthrow democracy.
But not because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But just to ward off any talking point or criticism from the Democratic Party, which is hilarious.
Does that? Does it do that? All the ones who voted against it still voted against it. It doesn't change that.
So McCarthy is likely to steer clear of choosing the most controversial firebrands in the party, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz, who would be harder for the Republican leader to control and could undermine the GOP strategy on this. And so let's put up this fun little graphic, shows you some of the individuals that McCarthy is thinking about. You got Jim Jordan, Elise Stefanik, Johnson, Banks.
Yeah, I don't know them either.
Yeah, a bunch of people I'm not.
Yeah. Rutherford seems like a good guy. Anyway, so like these are supposed to be less wild cards, and I guess in some ways they are. But Stefanik, who back in the day criticized Trump, she is a 100% loyalist toady. That's all she is now, and fully accepts the big lie and all that. So she's functionally identical to Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Greene. Jim Jordan might be worse in some ways. Totally. His whole thing is to take the jacket off, just every day, jacket off, and then go in there and ruin committee proceedings. That's all he's done for years. Dude, he used to have his old thing where like he covered up for sexual abusers and all that, but now his thing is wrecking committee proceedings. I didn't like either edition of him.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's not better than Matt Gaetz.
Also,
arguably his sexual crimes are worse than Matt Gaetz.
Yes, yeah, covering up the molestation and sexual misconduct by coaches.
Allegedly. If you trust the multiple victims of all those things he ignored. Yeah.
I'm inclined to believe the multiple victims
Me too.
Come forward. Yes.
I thought that was clear, but yes.
No, but it's crazy.
The whole thing is just so stupid.
The whole thing is stupid.
And I guess to some extent, I don't know if I'm reading you right, I feel like they're kind of succeeding with an assist from Nancy Pelosi, who I think fundamentally is an unserious person in a lot of different ways. I have like no expectations anymore. I really don't. I think they are going to successfully ruin it quite a bit. I think that Pelosi's more likely to come out with some, BS additional security that really doesn't have to do with the actual new threat and all that. Our initial concern when they were talking about the committee. So no, like there are lingering concerns. The deactivation of the panic button, the possibility that members of Congress were giving tours and all of that. I haven't heard anything about that in 6 months. Exactly. Don't expect that I will in the next 6.
Exactly. Also, like literal insurrectionists and white supremacists within the ranks of the Capitol Police and the military. Yeah. I mean, if this were shaping up to be a legitimate investigation, or look, obviously I'm speculating that it's shaping up to not be a serious effort to investigate what happened. But if it were, it would look into those issues. And right now, to be completely honest with you guys, it appears to be nothing more than a political ploy by both parties. I think that this is an effort to help keep control of Congress by the Democratic Party, and Republicans are terrified of that. So McCarthy is now playing ball because he wants to have some say. He wants to have some influence on how this whole process goes down. At the end of the day, it's not actually about investigating what happened in the nation's capital. And I think that's why so many Americans are checked out of this at this point. And it's frustrating. It really is, because while you might see some federal indictments when it comes to some of these individuals who did storm the Capitol that day, it's not just about what happened in the nation's capital that day. It's not just about the people who were there that day. It's about the underlying issues that led to it and what we can do to maybe mitigate it in the future, maybe address it before it happens again in the future. And it's really a sad state of affairs when our elected leaders have no interest in that. Seems like they have no interest in that, and have more interest in using this as a political tool for campaigning. It's pathetic. I've used that word a lot today, but it is.
And for years. Justifiably.
How else can you describe the state of affairs?
Yeah, no, I'm a shell of a man because none of this is real or worth, this is all stupid, clearly. And the final thing I would say is one thing that obviously is not going to be a part of this is going forward, the most substantive part is the use of the big lie, not just to instigate the Capitol attack, but to pass all of this anti-voting rights legislation, and to try to take over boards of elections, secretaries of state, and things like that with Trump loyalists who are going to do everything they can to nullify the results of elections. That is a million times more dangerous than the insurrection, but that's not going to be addressed by this investigation. It could be addressed and dealt with the voting rights bill federally, but they've given up on that. I don't even hear anything about that anymore. I'm sure at some point we will.
Oh yeah, the For the People Act, what happened to that?
I don't know, just not so much from the people anymore. But yeah, that would do something. But then what is the commission going to investigate? Why Kyrsten Sinema sucks so much? It's pretty easy to solve, actually. You got a couple of people who absolutely suck, and because of them, our democracy is probably gone.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.